So today we're going to be talking about inequalities. So what are inequalities? Inequalities are basically, they're basically telling us what numbers to include and which numbers to exclude whenever we're working with a set of numbers, most likely real numbers. So it can be anything from negative infinity to infinity is what we're including. It could be from 0 to 1 is what we want to include, so we want to exclude everything else. It's basically giving us a range of values where we're saying, okay, from this value to this value, we're going to include everything in between there, and we're not going to include anything but what's between those two values. So there's a couple things you need to learn before you can start diving into this more, specifically some symbols to go over. So this right here is less than, that symbol right there. This symbol right here would be greater than, so just the opposite of less than. And then we have less than or equal to. And this is saying that you want to be less than or equal to that number, whatever number that may be. And then lastly, you have greater than or equal to. So those are some things you're going to want to learn before we start diving into this a little bit more. We have less than, greater than, less than or equal to, and greater than or equal to. These are basically just some symbols that we're going to be using as we dive deeper into inequalities and being able to figure out which we want to use. So now to look at a few examples. Let's say we have interval notation of 1, 3 with parentheses surrounding it. If you don't know what interval notation is, I encourage you to go watch my video on real numbers, the number line, and interval notation would be really useful for this. So here we have interval notation of parenthesis 1, 3 parenthesis. So what basically that's saying is that we want to have our interval go from 1 to 3, but we do not want to include 1 and we do not want to include 3. So here's a little number line to show you that as well. So number line is the horizontal line. We're going to start here at 0, and then we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so we want to go from 1 to 3. I'm going to do it right below here. Since we know that 1 is this parenthesis, so it's not included, we put an open circle. 3 is the same thing, not included, so open circle, and then you connect them. And so then going to inequalities, you can have another way to actually show this. And so with inequalities, you're going to say we want it to be between the values 1, which is going to be less than, x, which is less than 3. And so what actually does this mean right here? This is basically saying that if you were to pick some value x, let's say x is equal to 2. Is 2 greater than 1 and less than 3? The answer to that is yes, and you can actually check that up here by looking at, okay, 2 is right here, and is it in our interval? Yes, it is. Okay, so that's kind of the start to inequalities. Again, we're using the less than and the less than here instead of the less than and equal to because we do not want to include it. So for this problem, we're going to be doing interval notation again to start it off. Specifically, this problem would be parentheses, negative infinity, comma, negative 3 bracket. And so this one might be a little bit more confusing than the last because we don't actually have a number on this side. This is just infinity, which is not actually a value. It's just a representation of going on forever in one direction. And so the best way to tackle this problem right off the bat, I'd say, would be to draw the number line. It helps explain it a little bit better. So we're going to draw our number line, and we're going to go ahead and number. So negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5. And then I'm just going to put dot, dot, dot. And the reason I'm putting dot, dot, dot right here is to really show that this just goes on forever, right? It's going to go all the way to negative 100, to negative 1,000,000, everything like that. And so here we see the negative 3. We know that's a bracket, so we want to include that value. So we're going to put the dot here. And where it gets confusing is you might say, okay, where do I put the other dot? And so for this one, actually, you're not going to put a dot. You're going to put an array. And so an array is a line with an arrow at the end. This is indicating that we just want to keep going on forever in that direction. And so now we can actually move on to showing what the inequality should be for this one. And so again, I'm thinking about it like the last one. There is nothing on the left because we don't really know what value negative infinity is. Then we have x, which is going to be less than or equal to, because it's a closed circle or the bracket, -3. And so this is going to be our inequality, saying that we can do, if as long as x is less than negative or equal to -3, then it fits in this, and then it's fitting in this because it's negative infinity. Similarly, if we were to do something like, okay, from -3 to infinity this way, the opposite direction, drawing our number line and then saying, let's say -3 is here, and this is going to be an open circle this time. We just know it's going to go on forever in this direction, so the inequality is going to be the opposite, right? So we know the left side, which is -3, and then we know that it's going to be open circle, so that's going to be less than, and then we have x. And this can also be written as x is greater than -3. All mean the same as long as they have the same rules here being applied.